For my movie poster and plot, I've decided on the title of The Ripple Effect. This is because water is so central to my life, and it's been a common denominator at every turning point. I grew up along the water and in the ocean, going to the beach, spending my summers at a coastal surf town called Lorne. It's where I spent every summer since birth. My first turning point is definitely Bronze Camp, which I did at Bronze, and I've made some of my best friends from that camp to this day. I've learned so many skills. I've gained experience, confidence in the water. I can rescue people. I've gained so many first aid, CPR knowledge, and I've also made incredible connections. I've been able to give back to the community volunteering, and now I hold the role of the Bronze Camp coordinator. My next turning point was working at a summer camp in America, where I was camp counselor as an activity specialist for swimming and also a lifeguard. Again, this follows the theme of water throughout my life, how it was so present and it's always there. So I thought it was really interesting to have that play into working in American summer camp as well. I applied so late to the program that I probably shouldn't have got a spot, but because of my experience with surf lifesaving, they made room. So yeah. Lastly, swim teaching as my employment, because that will show to future employees that I've had a steady job and I can work with people working on my interpersonal skills. Overall, the more that I look back and reflect on it, I can see how central water is to me and how present it is in my life. My poster is something that took a lot of trial and error. I originally was going to be using generative AI to help create a poster, but unfortunately I wasn't able to articulate correctly to the platform exactly what I wanted, and it kept giving me things that didn't quite fit the aesthetic I was looking for. And then I ran out of prompts from the free plan limit, so it means I couldn't give any more suggestions for them to create an image, so I turned to Canva instead. Canva is a platform I'm very comfortable using to create a film poster because I've used it throughout all of my education from primary and high school. An example of when I was creative was throughout sport, specifically tennis. This is because I would constantly be seeing ways to change the pattern of play and always go for the shot that was not obvious. I utilised my unusual skills, such as being ambidextrous, to my advantage by confusing players, because most of the time a person's weakness is their backhand. However, that was my strongest shot. So I would then confuse the players even more by doing something that they wouldn't expect, by going for something that is a little bit more risky, but there was a lot higher reward. A missed opportunity of being creative is not doing physical or fashion as one of my Year 12 subjects, as I only did media. This did give me one creative outlet, but I wish I'd done the other ones more instead of just following the mainstream generic subjects when I should have just done what I was passionate about. The Confidential Theory of Creativity by Teresa Amabile describes creativity as an end product. She illustrates that creativity is both novel and original, and is formed from 3 internal components and 1 external. The internal components being relevant skills, creative thinking, and intrinsic motivation, and the external factor being one's social environment. She describes intrinsic motivation being the most powerful in creating the end product of creativity, because that motivation is what drives someone to vocalize an idea and make it become a reality. In summary, everyone is creative. If you actually take an interest and care about something, then you're more likely to create, because you're invested in wanting to share something creativity with the external social environment. My example of being creative with tennis follows Amabile's process of creativity. My skills in tennis were my shots. With clean technique, power, and versatility, I was able to build on my shots to make them consistent and dependable. My creative thinking processes were heightened on court, where I was prone to risk-taking behaviours, by serving at the lowest percentage places in the service box, but with high execution rates. My internal drive to compete and just do my best was there, because I just loved the game. My external social environment was extremely supportive. I had coaches, parents, and friends who were always there for me, regardless of the result. My example of me lacking creativity with not doing physical or fashion can be seen through my skills were there. I was able to sew and design, but my creative thinking process was one form where I was lacking. I didn't have risk-taking behaviours in terms of fashion, but still employed imagination and problem solving. I also lacked some intrinsic motivation because I didn't fully believe I could juggle multiple folio subjects, especially in Year 12. Lastly, my social environment, the people I was surrounding myself with, were all doing mainstream subjects, and no one was doing anything, especially more than one folio subject. So I think that environment also held me back in a sense from taking on multiple folios. Now I can understand the reasons for my choices and why I decided not to be creative and follow something that I'm more passionate about, because I was not in the right space to undertake it at that time. Pink time is the concept of removing external motivation and rather creating a space where you can devote time to passion projects. For my Pink Time project, I want to find out what industry I want to work in, as well as what kind of job. I really want to build on my knowledge of this for what I want to work in, because currently it induces a lot of anxiety not knowing what I want to do, but more so ending up in a job that I hate. This is why I've chosen this topic, because I don't want to mold to a job that's already there. I would rather know what my likes and interests are and then look for a job based on those likes and interests, but currently I'm not too sure, which is why I want to dedicate this time to that. I hope that at the end of Pink Time I potentially know what industry or job I want to work in, but more so and more realistically just a sense of direction into what kind of things I do like and what things I don't like, so I can rule things out. My creativity type was the guide, and my thinking style results were 88% the doer and the inventor, 63% original thinker and orator, and lastly 25% the analyst. I agree with my creativity type because the guide is described as someone who naturally brings people together and unites people and provides leadership through hope. They are also described as someone who lives a life finding meaning and purpose throughout every role they have that isn't solely monetary pursuit. and I also agree that I'm driven by personal passions. I create a lot of sequences saying that if I get this thing done, then I can move to that, and that being a passion project of mine, whether it be doing bead embroidery, going for a run, anything like that. I also agree with the doer and inventor as thinking styles, because I've always been someone who needs to physically see things in front of them. Even when I was studying in year 12, I would always need to write down things on a whiteboard in different colours so it would stick in my brain. So I think this really suits me very well. I also aim to turn things into a reality. I've also, since being at uni, really developed on the idea that I do not really like learning theories and orders of thinking, but rather I like turning intangible things into tangible things where I can physically see them. I'm not really sure what my career path is going to look like, but I can see how these quizzes their results have been pretty accurate, especially with my volunteering work as Lawn SLSC's Bronze Camp Coordinator. I was able to be a doer creating schedules and making sure that the program came to life, mixing in what people are best at and seeing what people's strengths were and playing in towards that. And I think seeing that in a real life scale through the event was really, really meaningful for me. I was able to use those thinking skills and my creative type to help create tangible activities which excited the kids and also excited the instructors to unite people together and create relationships and skills.